From time to time, leaders are called upon to envision a better future, be bold in the implementation and execution, and be undaunted by the opposition. That's how you secure progress.
Wait. Wrong city. 1 second. In a very dumb string of decisions, Governor Kathy Hochul has actually decided to not implement congestion charging at the end of June. Now, I know some of you might be like, well, what is congestion charging? Why do I need to pay another tax? Well, I'll explain that later in this video, because some of you are not from the Northeast and do not understand how ridiculous New York is, both with transit and with how congested Manhattan is.
So let's talk about congestion pricing, which would impose a $15 charge on cars entering Midtown and below, beginning in just a few weeks.
Yep, that's it. Just the lower half of Manhattan. Nowhere else in New York City would you get charged. And if you're just traveling through Manhattan on a highway, you do not get charged either. But this is not the issue for majority of the people that visit this area, which I will talk about in a little bit. But first, let's let her continue talking.
Now, it was enacted 5 years ago to achieve two essential goals: reduce traffic and emissions in New York City, and provide a funding stream for much-needed capital investments in public transit.
Yes, this is absolutely true. Cars do pollute the areas that they are in, not just with tailpipe emissions, they also have microparticles and microplastics that come off of the tires and other pieces of wear equipment on them. And like she said, this is also going to fund transit. And annoyingly, since she has delayed this multiple times before, MTA has had to actually postpone some of its contractors that are working on the subway itself.
It was also enacted in a pre-pandemic period, where workers were in the office 5 days a week.
Bullshit.
Crime was at record lows.
Shut the fuck up.
Tourism was at record highs.
Your own goddamn office published this.
Circumstances have changed, and we must respond to the facts on the ground, not from the rhetoric from 5 years ago.
Huh?
So after careful consideration, I have come to the difficult decision that implementing the planned congestion pricing system risks too many unintended consequences for New Yorkers at this time.
You could at least try to attempt to lie well? Like, come on. This isn't even the first thing you backtracked on. Originally, you backtracked on all the housing programs that you were going to do around transit in your state, not just New York City, but it was going to help all of the housing market around New York City. But no, you fell apart when some wealthy NIMBYs complained, oh no, I might have more housing in my town near my train station, wah. And you instantly fell apart with your administration because you're spineless machine politician that only looks at polls and cares about no one. Since the governor apparently needs a refresher on why congestion pricing is a good thing for New York City, let's go over it. To understand congestion pricing, you need to understand New York City. Since no mortal man can understand New York City completely, we have to go over a few things. New York City is a very unique city, not just in a North American context, but in the world. It has world-class transit, and because of that, it has very low car ownership rates. Car ownership rates so low just within the city that the whole state of New York actually beats many European countries. Yes, that's right. The state of New York has lower car ownership rates than the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, Sweden, and Portugal. And there's a reason for this. Not only is the subway really good, but also the commuter railroads that serve New York are very good. Out of the top 10 systems in the United States, the top 3 spots are all taken by commuter railroads that serve New York City. New York City always has been and always will be, whether Robert Moses or the suburbanites like it, a transit city. Especially Manhattan. Let's talk about Manhattan specifically. Why is the congestion zone just below Central Park and all of Lower Manhattan? Well, the subway, commuter rail system, and other different transit modes are so good that majority of the people that work in Manhattan and commute to Manhattan are not driving. Now, granted, some of the other boroughs do not have as high ridership because they're not as dense, but this doesn't tell the whole story. People actually living in poverty or below the poverty line for New York City don't usually drive. And so with all of Kathy Hochul's things about, oh, we have to help people in poverty, or oh, we have to help people with expenses, that's complete bullshit. Because if she actually cared about helping people, she'd really, really care about funding transit. Because look, that 2% of people that are going into Manhattan that are driving, yeah, look at the rest of them that are on transit that she could be helping instead. Do you know why she's actually doing this? Because this whole scheme in the first place was to fund transit. She is bending over backwards because Tony Baloney in the Hamptons with $1 million is complaining that he has to pay $15 extra to drive into Manhattan. So she's going out of her way to cancel this entire program for the whole city to fund transit and MTA just because some rich dudes are complaining to her that they have to pay a little bit extra to drive their Mercedes into Manhattan. There is no better way to say this than what a weak asshole of a governor. And now let's talk about the 3 cascading effects that this will have on the city of New York if congestion pricing is canceled like she is planning, apparently. Number 1. The second phase of the 2nd Avenue subway extension is going to be canceled. Let me repeat that. The 2nd Avenue subway extension to 125th is going to be canceled. You see, the way that transit funding works in the United States is that when the federal government gives a bunch of money to a project, it's also expecting the state and city to closely, roughly match the amount of money that they're giving into the project. One of the reasons for implementing congestion pricing was so that these future extensions and projects could be easily paid for and so that New York could expand its transit consistently. Hey, Kathy, where the fuck are you getting $3 billion from? Oh wait, you did. You actually mentioned something. And it's the stupidest idea of all time. You know what city tried something similar to this in the 80s? My stupid city, Philadelphia. Over time, this tax has actually forced a lot of businesses out of the city, and you'll see places around Philly like King of Prussia absorbing those businesses. So instead of taxing the cars on the gridlock streets of Manhattan, you're going to sacrifice your city's economy instead. Great idea. Fantastic. I can't... Oh my God. You have the ability to turn Manhattan into a fantastic bikeable and walkable place and utilize your amazing transit system. But instead, you gotta let Tony Baloney boss you around so he doesn't pay $15. Oh no. And let's talk about the last thing that you're going to be screwing up by canceling the congestion pricing. A good percentage of the new funds from the congestion pricing were going to go to accessibility upgrades for stations. And for those that are low income and disabled that are driving, there was also exemptions in the program for those people too. But instead now, without congestion pricing for fixing stations, Kathy is essentially saying, fuck disabled people that ride transit. If you are rightfully pissed off as I am, there's one thing that we can at least do for now, which is go and contact her administration and bully them until they say something positive or at least reinstate congestion pricing. I don't know what your plan was when you pissed away this opportunity, because this is now not the first, but the second big fumble that you've had in your administration. I don't know what people are supposed to think of you when you promise something in the future when you've backtracked on 2 of your biggest projects. You have zero accountability in your administration, and the only way to undo some of that accountability is to actually implement congestion charging. Because if you don't implement congestion charging, I have just one message for you at the next election.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Because hopefully the door won't hit you when you get kicked out of office.
Yeah, I'm up at Brooklyn. Now I'm down in Tribeca, right next to De Niro. But I'll be hood forever. I'm the new Sinatra. And since I made it here, I can make it anywhere. Yeah, they love me everywhere. I used to cop in Harlem. All of my Dominicanos right there up on Broadway. Brought me back to that McDonald's. Took it to my stash spot, 560 State Street. Catch me in the kitchen like a Simmons whipping pastry. Cruising down 8th Street, off-white Lexus. Driving so slow, but BK is from Texas. Me, I'm up at Bed-Stuy, home of that boy Biggie. Now I live on Billboard, and I brought my boys with me.